So welcome to today training, how to manage the contractual variation. My name is Mohammed Munas. I'm a fellow member of MRICS. I am training the quantity surveyors more than 20 years. And I have built so many quantity surveyors in terms of academic and the professionals, like diploma, degree in academic wise. And professional wise, I have built chartered quantity surveyors. I still continue to develop the quantity surveyors knowledge throughout my training. So these are one of the training that we are going to talk today about the variations, right? So many of you all handling the variation as a quantity surveyors, and you have an idea how to handle the variations. But however, today's session, we will go a little bit in a better way, in simple way that you can learn something about the procedure, contractual procedure about the variation. So welcome to today session. Now, what we are going to learn today, we will learn about the how to identify the contractual variation. Not always every instructions from the engineer going to be a variations. Sometimes you should be very careful when you are saying this is a variation based on your contract. Okay, so once you identify the variation, right, you should have the proper understanding about the change control management process. So change control management process means how the variations are implemented and instructed and evaluated, and the notice provision. The contractor must give the notice, the variation, and you should have the contractual knowledge. So contractual entitlement you have to identify, and also finally payments. And we will study at the last about the common mistakes that we can avoid. So now I will point on some key wording here. Identify and understand. This is all about you should have the knowledge about the contractual scope of work and your contract. Okay, then you should know the notice provision and your contractual entitlement. Again, it's all about the contracts. And you should know how to price your variation and how to avoid the mistakes. So if you see, these are the key terms we are going to focus throughout the webinar today. Okay, so whoever attending this today's session, please carefully observe, and you will have a great understanding at the end of the session if you continue to observe carefully. Now, before we continue, I'm going to do a small question with all of you, right? Can you all answer these questions? Have you ever had a variation submission rejected? What do you think? Variation submission rejected? Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay. All of you can share your experience, whether right or wrong, that's fine. Okay. So we can see the response from the poll that approximately 70% people have the rejected variations and 28 no. Maybe you don't submit the variation, maybe not. Okay, so let's move on to the topic now. Identify, okay, and classify the contractual variation. So if you talk about this particular point, you should have a understanding about the contract. Now, when come to the FIDIC had a very dedicated subclause, which is subclause 13 for the variation. But this is not only the subclause that connected to the variation. There are so many other subclauses connected to the variation. You should know about that subclauses too. So in FIDIC, the subclause 13 define, it gives the definition for the variation, what is variation, and who can instruct the variation, how the change control should go. But you have your own contract, which have its own definition for the variation. Protocol for the variation. So you should study thoroughly about the subclause 13 and understanding the change control management process. It is, if you are talking about the change control process, we have three important part. One is you have to instruct the variation to implement the variation. Second, once the variations are instructed, then you have to carry out the works. So the implementation part will come. Once you implemented the variation, you have to pay for the works. So these are the three components of the variation, but it looked like very simple, isn't it? Okay, so the variation process looked like very simple in theory, but when come to the real practical world, right? Most of you are encounter a lot of troubles when you are going through the variations. So therefore, why this problem happen? How we can avoid? That is the purpose we are going to learn today. So now there are some questions you have to understand and answer me. What will you do if the engineer does not instruct a variation? Now you see this one, the red color, instruct the variation. The questions also belong to that particular part. Engineer must instruct the variation, but if the engineer not instruct the variation, what do you do? Or carry out the works as a engineer or client, you can say, what will you do if the contractor does not carry out the works even after the instruction given? Or the third part is the payment. What will you do if the employer has not paid, or engineer didn't certify the payments, or the payment terms are not agreed? What will you do? These are the problematic areas you should understand how to handle. If it is straightforward, let's say engineer will instruct the variation, contractor will do the works, and payment will happen. There's no problem. Everyone can do the variation easily without any trouble. However, there are so many reasons this is not going to be happen in simple way what we are looking at the theory. So let's go and see practical issues that can happen in the change control process. So first of all, the notice provision. Now, contractor must give the notice. But there are situations, contractor, okay, didn't give the notice for the variation. So let me give you some key reasons. If you are the one working for a contractor, okay, you will understand this. One of the reason may be a root cause for your problem, right? First problem, you have no idea about your contractual scope of work. That means the original contract standing. But what are the activities you are going to do? So since you have no idea about the works, you don't know what is original scope of work and what is the additional scope of work or variation. Therefore, you didn't give the notice for the variation. Another thing is you don't know your contractual provision. You didn't go through with the contract procedure. You don't know the terms and conditions, the deadline for the notifications. So therefore, you didn't give the notice. The third reason, some contractor having a very poor practice, they think the verbal instruction comes from the employer or engineer isn't a proper professional instruction, or some informal instruction come through an anyway. by any means, by calls or email, whatever it is, without following a proper protocol. Okay, you think that is an instruction, proper instruction. You should have an idea. Okay, in the FIDIC, only the engineer can issue an instruction. Think about your contract, who can issue an instruction. The variation can be initiated by any parties, either employer, contractor, or even the engineer. But the instruction must come from the one party, that is engineer. So in terms of FIDIC Red Book, now let's say somebody, employer instructing the contractor to do the work, you don't know how to convert that instruction into the proper engineer instruction, you are failing with the notice provision. Right. Then another problem is the poor coordination between the site team, or you can say the engineering team and the contract team or commercial team. They're not coordinating well. What's happening at the site? Maybe the site people got some additional work, but they didn't inform the QS team you have to claim for it. So therefore, you didn't give the notice because you are not aware because of the coordination issues. Or sometime the contractor team, especially the engineers, I mean the site engineers or project manager, they're trying to be a good person to the employer or engineer. They don't want to raise a claim against the employer. They won't act as a good person. So the fear of confronting is another reason they don't want to send the notice. Right. Then you may be misunderstood the weightage of that particular event, that economically how much you are going to incur additional money and the delay. So you are losing the entitlement because of you want to be a good person to the employer. Or documentation wise, you don't have a proper documentation. Right. So therefore you cannot prove, even you are having the entitlement, but you cannot prove it. Or as I told you, you are trying to act as a good person. Okay, so you are underestimating the cost and the time impact. Okay. Or you really realized the situation a bit later. You got to know, yes, now it is impacting a lot of money and the time we have to recover. Therefore, so many reasons you have, okay, not to give the variation as a contractor, variation notice as a contractor. So therefore, keep in mind, now if you see this person who is appearing here and the shadow, this person is a variation and this person is a claim. Do you understand what I'm saying here? The variation won't come alone. It come with a shadow, that is claim. Even though FIDIC 1999 says, right, you can claim the cost under the clause 13, subclause 13, but the time you have to claim under the subclause 8. That time under the subclause 8 connected to the subclause 20, which is claim. So for a simple example, I'm telling you, it is a very vast area, but try to understand that variation won't come alone. Like every man have the shadow. So there's a shadow claim. So learning the variations, very important to manage the claim as well. Now, let's focus on the contractual entitlement. If you want to raise variations, right, you should understand your contractual and requirement. That means what is the rights and obligation, right? Because you are trying to protect from the financial damage that can happen. Okay, so that can be a problem in the later part. So further, you want to avoid the dispute from the practice, what you are doing. So if you talk about the FIDIC, now we are going to talk about the safeguard, what FIDIC have under the subclause. So safeguard means either you work for an employer or you work for a contractor, you must know about your contract. Now the people with the less experience, they have no idea about the subclauses and the terms and conditions. They are supervised by the senior professionals and they are just doing the documents part. So let's learn properly why these contracts are important to secure your rights. First, you should know the variation, some variations will impact the time for completion of the project. So you have to know how to climb that through the subclause 8. Some variation, the existing rates become not appropriate. You cannot use that existing BOQ rate, some scenarios. Then subclause 12 will talk about and guide about varied work and the varied rate. We are not going to discuss today in that much detail, but for the beginner level QS, I am trying to give some hint that we can learn later on. Subclause 13, you should have the proper idea. It is defining the change control mechanism. Without knowing this one, you don't know how to do the variation. And subclause 14 is all about the payments, how you are going to get the payment for the variations. And subclause 16, if you don't get the payment timely, what do? You have the claims for the delay payment, right? You can go for the suspension or termination. That's a procedure. Learning all the subclauses, including the claims, subclause 20, right? There are so many other subclauses also connected when come to a variation. For example, insurance. Many people don't know, right? If variation introduced, insurance also will impact. Without knowing the contractual entitlement, you cannot be a proper QS. And if you want to grow, this simple change control management process, which means the variation process, not really as simple what we are seeing in the real practice. And failing to give a notice timely, keeping the inadequate supporting records, you will lose your entitlement. You might be not able to claim what really you are entitled for. And come to the payment provision. Now, I have to ask you all one question. Now, let's say it is a long variation. You can say time-wise, it will take longer period, more than 1 month or 2 months, 3 months, let's say 6 months. Such a big variation. Contractor instructed with such a long variations, and he started to work with that variation. Now, what do you think? He need to wait until the complete works done for a 6 month to get the payment? Or he can claim the money progressively. The many quantity surveyors don't know about this mechanism, because what they're thinking, I have to wait until the work done. Then only I can claim. No, that's wrong. You should understand what a contract says, specifically FIDIC. The variation must be valued and paid progressively. You don't need to wait until the completion of the variation. Because you have to think about the time and the money. It's time and the money together. Right. Now, you should know how to value the variation as per your contract. Maybe you can go for the BOQ rates or new rates or day works or any fair quantum merit basis evaluation. Right. Maybe some practical way you can calculate based on the productivity. You should know how to value the variation. Many construction practitioners are fighting in the real project without knowing how to value the variations. And second, once you encounter any variation, you have to include as a contractor in your upcoming interim payment applications. You don't need to wait until the work done fully. Okay. Then the engineer also cannot hold the entire payment until the works are complete and agree the rates. You might have the dispute in the rates, but you have to pay some amount to the contractor using the on-account payment or any nominal payment for their cost incurring for the works ongoing. So therefore, the many quantity surveyor waiting until the last moment to get the payment done. That is not a right practice, and they don't know what is a contract says. Okay, so now let's go on and see what are the common mistakes that is leading to a lot of problem in the real world. Okay. The first mistake, what we can say, the delayed variation order or the notice. What will happen if you are delayed with your entitlement or contractual provision to issue the variation notice? You are going to submit the variation also a little bit later or delayed one. So if you submit the variations proposal later on, right, the payment, what's going to happen with the payment, this is also going to come later. So you must know many contractors suffering the case flow because of this incident. Even though same problem applicable to the claims as well. The people are thinking claims and the variations are two different parts. No, it's all connected. It's like a main and the shadow, as I told you. Similar problem you will face if you don't claim the claims as well. Another thing is the documentation part. You don't have the adequate evidences to prove what was costing you. Okay, what is really happened or what are the costs you incurred? You don't have the evidence, and how engineer can certify and pay you if you don't give the evidences? So therefore, the one formula I want to introduce you, keep in mind, either you are a claim practitioner or ordinary quantity surveyors, no records, no payment. You sit upside down also, you go to the litigation also, nobody will pay you if you don't have the records. If you want to succeed with your interim payment applications, you need the records. You want to succeed with your payments for the variation, you need the records. If you want to succeed with the payment for your claims, you need the records. No records, no payment. There are plenty of sub-clauses in the FIDIC. They talk about records. They talk about so much importance of the records. Actually, you should know you have to price this particular documentary works in your contracts. You have to hire at least a certain number of document control team to manage your project, especially under the contracts team. The another thing is incorrect valuation. You really don't understand the contractual mechanism. Maybe some of you are practicing with the different type of contract, like a lump sum, remeasurement, or cost reimbursement contract, or different form of contract like a JCT, NEC, FIDIC, or different bespoke contract, or different procurement routes like a traditional design and build, turnkey. There are so many different types of procurement routes available. Since you are practicing in a different area, you don't know, let's say, how to manage the new procurement introduced to you. Let's say you are working under the traditional lump sum contract. If you got a chance to work with the traditional remeasurement contract, you don't know how to manage the variation. You try to apply the same mechanism that you have applied under the lump sum contract, which is absolutely wrong. So therefore, the rates or the total value of the variation, how you are going to agree, is going to be a dispute. Now, once you enter into the dispute, that's going to trigger a lot of problem. So the better way, you have to manage your change control professionally to avoid the dispute. Another thing is you don't know the proper contractual references, then how you can prove your entitlement? How do you know this is your how the additional cost and time that you can claim under the contract? So therefore, understanding the contractual relationship with the particular uh, element of scope of work, either that is original contract work or varied work or additional claims that's not as a variation, not as original scope of work, but something beyond it. Okay, so therefore, what will happen? Now, the common problem will come here. You are not submitted on time, the certification will be delayed and payment will be a problem. So cash flow will be impacted. If the cash flow impacted, contractor will suffer a lot. He cannot pay the supplier, subcontractor. It can be leading to the liquidated damages. Second, if you don't know how to negotiate the rates based on the sector I say to you, like a type of contract, form of contract, and the procurement methodology, some engineer hold the payment. That is wrong. You cannot hold the payment. At least you have to do the on account payment. But it's going to bring a lot of disputes. So therefore, you have to be very careful with the mistake happening. Now, the questions come to you. The repetitive question I will ask you, are the variation definitions same for all contracts, all procurement route? Now, for example, if you go and check the subclause 13 under the FIDIC Red Book, they have the definition for the variation under the general provision, which is subclause 1, also under subclause 13. Is this same definition applicable in your bespoke contract? Or is this same definition will be applicable under the design and build law book? Or what about the EPC turnkey? Or what about the blue book dredging and reclamation work? Or what about the NEC contract says about the variation definition? Is it same? What do you think? The answer is no. The many people fighting for the definition. They think, okay, for example, variation. This is a variation definition. I will not change it. You should understand. There's a vast area you to learn. Some people say, for example, provisional sum. Definition for the provisional sum. They will refer to one book. They think that is a right definition. No. Each and every book say different definition for the same wording. Try to understand that one. So therefore, you cannot have a one definition for this variation. Variation definitions are changed based on the form of contract, procurement routes, and the type of contract. So therefore, handling the variation for a different projects not going to be similar for you, unless otherwise you have the proper understanding. Many contractor or consultant who's practicing, they realize this issue when they go for a litigation or arbitration. They don't know until that what they did. Then the experts will say, no, this is the way you have to follow. So therefore, you should understand you are practicing in a one contract doesn't mean you know everything about the variations. Or you are practicing with the bespoke contract doesn't mean you know everything about the all the contractual provision. No, you should understand properly. So therefore, you should understand the variation protocol will differ when the type of contract differ. There are three main different type of contract, which is lump sum, measure and value, cost reimbursement. And each type of contract have the subcategories as well. Those type of contract actually originated from the JCT, which is Joint Contract Tribunal form of contracts. However, okay, in Gulf region, you are using the FIDIC-based contract. They have take the concept from the JCT and they have did some amendment in their contract. So without knowing this fact, so many people will be practicing in a wrong manner. Another thing is, as I told you, form of contract, like JCT have their own protocol, NEC have their own protocol, FIDIC have their own protocol, even your bespoke contract have their own protocol. Once you sign the contract, you are bound to do and bound to follow that protocol what you have agreed. But can we follow something a wrong protocol? Or can we go beyond the contract? The another thing is procurement routes. There are so many different varieties of the procurement routes available, like a traditional design and build and its variant, and the management oriented procurement routes, and there are so many others. All have the different protocol. So it is a very simple topics today we are discussing, right? But you should understand the area which is very vast. Okay. Now I will give you some more guidance how to study further about the change control process. Now, do you know there are 4 types of forms available? Namely, we have the RFC, request for change, approval request form, ARF, engineer instruction, and one more is there. I will explain you later on. So you have to understand the change control forms. You have to practice them you have to make a one format by understanding them in the Excel. Otherwise, you don't know what these forms are, and you don't know how to prepare that forms practically. Think about what kind of QS you are doing now, because it is part of your duty. Now, how many of you know these forms before? Have you all learned about this RFC, ARF, EI before? You know the content of these documents. So please learn. This you have to learn by heart. As nobody will guide you, because these are the techniques you have to learn. Those people working for the contractor, you are not aware about the ARF. You never come to know what is ARF. Who are working for the consultant, they only know what is ARF. It's a very internal, private document for the employer and the consultant. You might know about the RFC and the EI, but not ARF, unless otherwise you had a consultant experience. So therefore, please, if you have to prepare in a Microsoft Excel, why Excel? If you don't know Excel, don't say you are a quantity surveyors. So many people coming from the university don't know how to use the computer. The workability skill is not there. They don't know how to use the basic tools from the Microsoft Office. So try to practice, learn well. Second, I can give you the task. Now, if you work for a consultant, prepare the change control form or logs. You can say how you are going to manage the ongoing variation. That's a format you have to build. Third, if you are working for the contractor organization, right, you also have to prepare the variation log for the contractor organization, which is something different from the consultant one. And the fourth form I was saying, there are 4 forms, right? The fourth form is bigger one. It's really very big than what you think. Those people submitted the AVI, only they know. That means agreed value of instruction. That have a lot of documentation. It's a proper professional way how to submit the variation. So that's what I put this picture for you to understand. I put just single Excel file. Here I put the folder. Why? It is a big document. So you should learn how to prepare the AVI. So once you learn, then again, using the Excel, you have to connect them. There are interconnection between the files, right? You have to use the commands. Using the Excel, you have to use the commands. And also infographics, like you have to give the charts. Somebody seeing the front page, they can see the dashboard. So many quantities we don't know how to prepare the dashboard. That give a very good information or communications to the management. So if you want to grow, as a senior level or the leadership level, from the intermediate or junior level, you have to learn this properly. Now, what we are talking today, only the variation, right? Now, coming to the points, why it is important to learn the contracts. Now, as I told you, FIDICs have only the particular subclause which is 13. But learning only the 13 subclause number, is it going to be adequate for you to become an expert on the variations? What do you think? Think about it. The contracts are not interlinked. It is well interconnected with the other contracts. So, for example, if you talk about the FIDIC have the 20 subclauses. These subclauses are interconnected with all the subclauses. You can't learn segmental wise, okay, variation only subclause 13. Now, why you need to learn the contract? So, why it is very important to learn the contract? Because the very important point is rights and obligation. Now, what is the rights and obligation? For example, if you talk about the construction contract, we have the employer and the contractor. These are the two parties in the contract, main party. So, what employer wants, he need to construct his building based on his contractual requirement, drawing, specification, whatever it is. So that is his rights. What is contractor obligation? He need to do the building construction based on the contractual requirement. That is his obligation. See, the employer rights become contractor obligation. Other way around, what is a contractor rights? He need to get paid for the work done based on the contract agreement. What is the employer obligation? The employer have to pay the contractor based on the payment work done. So do you understand? One party rights become other party obligation. Now, can you say you work for a contractor, you learn only the contractor rights and obligation? Is it going to help you? Without knowing what is engineer rights and obligation, what is the employer rights and obligation? What do you think? So that is the point you should understand. You have to learn all the parties' rights and obligation. Because if you talk about the each and every procurement routes, which I am displaying here, these are typical layout for the whole procurement route. The rights and obligations are not same under the each and every procurement route. These are very different. Do you understand? These are very different. Now let's go and see the FIDIC Red Book. Now, do you know employer shall? Employer shall mean what? What is the meaning of the employer shall? Now, for example, employer shall retain the copyright. So what is that? Employer shall. This employer rights or obligation? You think it is a employer obligation? So see, look at this. The point when I am searching the FIDIC Red Book, employer shall. So how many points are captured here? How many wordings are there about the employer shall? Can you see that one? Counted how many? 57, right? It's got 57. Same exercise I done for the engineer shall. Okay, how many obligation for the engineer now captured here? 74. So 57 for the employer, 74 for the engineer. Now, ultimately, engineer obligations, engineers are working for an employer. So their obligation belong to the employer. These two are belong to the employer. Now let's see the contractor shall. See how many. So working for a contractor, is it very important to learn the contracts? You understand the weightage of the count? It went to 251. So therefore, you should have the proper understanding about all the rights and obligation of the all parties. Without understanding them, how you can handle your contract? Okay. So therefore, it is very important to understand the rights and obligation. Without knowing them, you cannot learn about your contract. Now, when come to learning about the contract, are we going to learn, let's say, are we going to learn all the subclauses, which is 1 to 20 based on the whole form of contract, let's say red book, yellow book, or sometimes the silver book, are we going to learn? Is it practicable? So the guidance what I am going to give you, at least learn one contract properly. One contract properly from basic to the very expert level without any single doubt. Right. So in FIDIC Red Book, we have a 20 subclauses. Now somebody want to grow in your career, take one book. We have the 1999 Red Book, we have the 1987 Red Book, we have the 2017 Red Book. I will advise start with the 1999. By 2017, it will take some time to come for a real practice. 1987 is really complicated. So for a learners, 1999 will be very helpful because it is not so easy like a 2017 or not so complicated like a 1987. It is in medium. So if you understood 1999 Red Book, you can understand the yellow book, silver book, you can understand all other FIDIC book. Also, you can compare the NEC, JCT, even your bespoke contract. So at least you have to be very thorough about the one book that we talk about the Red Book today. Okay, in the Red Book, we have the 20 subclauses. Let me show you, okay, how these 20 subclauses are appearing in the Red Book. This is our original screenshot of the FIDIC Red Book. So you can see subclause 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 7 here. Then you can see up to 19, and it will be end up with the subclause 20. Now, going through up to this all the subclauses 20, word by word, subclause by subclause, and segment by segment. Like if you are talking about the payment, you have to understand all the subclauses relevant to the payment. If you talk about the variation, you should know all the subclauses relevant to the variation. If you talk about the bonds, you should know all the connected subclauses for the bonds. Similarly, insurance, like every segment. If you learn that way, that is the way it will make you very expert. There's no other shortcut. There's no other, easiest way to become a proper QS. So therefore, please study this one book at least. I suggest Red Book, but you choose any book you want to study and grow your knowledge contractually. Now, many peoples come to me for my training. As I told you, I'm a trainer, an industrial practitioner for the 20 years now. Right. What I did, I built up a training which is called Advanced QS Practice and Contract Management, where I have shared 20 years of my expertism to young people, where they can build their career. It takes time. Definitely it takes time because it is an experience sharing program. Some people want to learn very quickly. There's no shortcut to learn very quickly because the knowledge you have to learn progressively. Now, when come to the quantity surveying, what we have in the quantity surveying, simple. It's not a rocket science. There's no difficulties if you learn properly. That is, one is a pre-contract, another one is post-contract. These are the activities mainly fall under the QS part. Right. So once the contract award, from the contract award before, we call pre-contract. After the contract award, we call post-contract. So dividing point of the pre-contract and the post-contract is a contract award. Now, either you work for a pre-contract or post-contract as a consultant QS or contractor QS. But what you should know? You have to know what is a feasibility study. You should know about the principle of measurement. You should know about the type of contract. You should learn about the form of contract. Then you should know the procurement strategies. Then the tendering process. Now, if you don't know any of them, You don't know what is a type of contract, you don't know what is a form of contract, and you don't know what are the procurement strategy, you don't have any idea about the tendering strategy. Can you do the post contract properly? The answer is no, you cannot do. Because look at this. We have one common wording here. What is the common wording in the pre-contract and post-contract? Can you identify the common wording? What is that? The common wording is contract. Now, if you want to operate the post-contract successfully, then the pre-contract should be done properly. So without knowing this, you cannot do any post-contracting. So this is the place you have to be experts. Now, when come to the post-contract, okay, so it's all about not payment or variation. Actually, I just put the key points here. You have to learn all the things about the contracts. You have to learn about the how to start the project, how to commence the project, program, insurance, bonds. There are types of bonds requirement, insurance requirement. You have to know about the all the protocol, how to manage the subcontractors. This contract throughout the FIDIC 20 subclauses are segmental wise. It talks about the key points. That key point I take into my training and put it in a way that ordinary quantity survey without a proper experience or without any industry experience, they have to learn gradually to develop to a senior level. Now, many people believe, no, I need to be a 10 years experience QS to become a senior. No, the years doesn't matter. Some people working for a 20 years, they know only the quantity takeoff. They don't know anything about the pre-contract or post-contract. They know only the measurement. It doesn't make any sense. So learn in a way that will help you to grow faster. So therefore, this experience training program, which I am built based on the FIDIC 1999 Red Book, and the another benefit I have found during this important program, there are so many people coming from the university or colleges, they don't have the industrial experience. There are a gap. So when they come to the industry, even they are a first class students, they don't have the idea how to manage the situation. Even they are brilliant, but they don't know how to do. Even the people working for an industry for a 5 to 10 years or even 15 years more, they don't have all the exposure what I have talked to you today. They are working in a very limited area, either pre-contract or post-contract. Also, so many people want to change their career to the QS. I have seen so many quantity surveyors, they are coming from the engineering background or even sometimes different field. So they want to fill their industrial gap. Or even the construction practitioner, like a civil engineer, so engineering background people, they want to go for a QS works because they feel comfortable. And also every year we have the competition. That competition keep increase. Students are growing, even the professionals are changing the career to the QS. So the competition increase much. And also those people are going for RICS. Nowadays they are fighting for the MRICS. They also have the lack of experience. So to fill all the things, I built this training. And this training suitable for all kind of construction practitioners. Either you are inexperienced or experienced. This give you a proper, solid ground for your growth. Okay. So therefore, with that information, now if you found today's session is helpful for you, and if you want to continue with the total duration of the 8-month program, which is going to take definitely 8 months or more, or if you have any questions that today you attended session, you want to ask a lot of questions, okay, you can reach me through the WhatsApp. So I will respond to you all the question individually through the WhatsApp, because in this platform, you cannot ask the questions. And also for those people trying to enroll this program, also reach me through the WhatsApp. And we are going to start the new batch for the advanced US practice soon. Okay. Okay. If you have any questions, as I told you, don't use the question option here in this platform because this is not an interconnected platform to communicate in a both way. But you can reach me through personal WhatsApp I have given here. And another thing is now some people have a question today. You never maybe attended my previous training regarding the type of contracts or form of contracts or even the tendering process or even the tender sum lecture or even I done the claims related things. We have a proper YouTube channel right now to go through those recording and you can grow your knowledge. Okay, with that, thank you for attending today's session and good night to everyone.